Unacademy. Let's crack it.
Purpose of this conversation with you for about an hour and a half to 2 hours are two things. One, I'd like to have an incredibly honest conversation about this exam with all of you. And two, I'd like to teach you how to study, more specifically my subjects, which is paper 2 and related areas to paper 2. This is not a commercial class. This is not an advertising class. I'm not going to ever be telling you, oh, please come and join here. That's none of my concern. What my concern is that you prepare in the most efficient manner. Now, is there anyone here who's preparing keeping 2024 in mind? The next year. All right. The rest of you are all looking at 25? Excellent. How many of you are still in college? Final year, second year? All right, great. And what are these colleges?
So Miranda House.
Miranda House. This is DU, North Campus, right? Dolathram. DU kids. Non-DU kids? What college is this? Nagpur. Great. How many of you are engineers? Okay. Lawyers? History, political science? Lawyers? Arre. Excellent. What law school is this?
From where I graduated.
Yes, what law school?
IAB Law College.
Which is?
IAB.
IAB. Great. Where is this?
Ghaziabad.
Ghaziabad. Any other lawyer? Arre. What law college is this?
BLLB honors at law faculty.
Law faculty. Any other lawyer? Yes.
IMA Law College.
IMA Law College. Both of you from the same. Why are you guys sitting separately? Do you guys have a fight? Oh, you don't know him. Okay. Fair enough. History guys, political science guys. History, political science. Political science. You took political science because you wanted to prepare for UPSC? Or you... Masters? But this is beneath you then. Okay. Political science, history, sociology, these are irregular academic disciplines. Okay, shuru karte. I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Atish Mathur. I am a lawyer, graduated out of the National Law School, Bangalore. I practice in the Supreme Court. Also, I'm also here involved in the capacity of the Director for Academics here. That comes under me. I teach polity, governance, social issues, social justice, IR and internal security. My mainframe subject is, of course, polity, right? इसके ऊपर कुछ है नहीं मेरी जिंदगी में आपको बताने लायक और जो है वो आप सुनना नहीं चाहेंगे चलिए we're going to be discussing 5 things today. 1, there are certain general rules that apply to my classes. 2, there are certain holy principles that apply to this civil services exam and these are absolutely non-negotiable. You cannot breach them. 3, syllabus. Your story starts here, your story ends here. Everything else does not matter. Then, I tend to deliver the syllabus in a certain way. Whether you study with me or not, use the same way to prepare however you are studying, right? It will help you efficiently prepare your entire exam in the shortest amount of time. In this, I'll talk to you about how do you restructure and reorganize the syllabus. I'll talk to you about how should you be studying the syllabus. I'll also talk to you about the broad timelines in which you should be finishing at least our portions of the syllabus. And fourthly and fifthly, I will talk to you about the kind of sources and the kind of notes that you should be looking at. Clear? Okay. First, you're in my class. Today is a class. There are basically 5 rules. Even if this is a coaching classroom, it is a classroom nonetheless. So you will conduct yourselves accordingly as how you would have if it was a formal university, a school or a college. 2, at any given point of time, there is a zero tolerance for anything insensitive. It could be gender, it could be caste, it could be religion, it could be national affairs. You are preparing for the civil services. You are to look at things objectively. You are to look at things rationally. I understand that all of you are completely entitled to have opinions of your own, but your opinions must park themselves outside the scope of this exam. Unfortunately, when you study Article 19, which is the freedom of speech and expression, your own freedom of speech and expression with this exam will stand to be compromised. There will be very clear-cut opinions that you have to keep a hold of as far as this exam is concerned. It's that simple. 3. You must at all junctions in time, whether you study here, anywhere else, you study on your own, which is also perfectly doable by the way. Whatever it is, question everything, including the syllabus, the PYQ, the teacher, the subject. Everything is to be questioned. If you do not have an answer to your question, doesn't matter how simple your question is, doesn't matter how complex your question is, you have a fundamental right to ask a question. Even if it is when you're preparing yourself, you have a community of students, don't ever hesitate in asking questions, because this is a very complex process. And for that, you will always have questions, doubts, self-doubts, existential questions at different points of time. Never let them pass. Always address them while you're preparing for this exam. 4th, fundamentally, this is a labor-intensive exam. This means you have to bank on your memory. If you don't have good memory, you'll have to work on improving your memory. A memory is like a muscle. The more you use it, the better it gets. Everybody has a basic standard of memory which is good enough for this exam. There is nothing called a deep analysis, an X factor, a complex interlinkage. 70 to 80% of this exam will require you to memorize things. Now, if you studied smartly, you would have lesser things to memorize. If you studied in a more organized fashion, it will be easier for you to consolidate things, put them together and memorize them quicker. But you cannot clear this exam if you can't memorize. That's the only thing. There are smart ways to go about it. There are complex ways to go about it. But at the end of the day, when in the prelims exam, you have about 2 minutes per question, and in the mains exam, you have about 7 minutes to write each answer, more than your logic, more than your intellect, your memory will always be your first point of rescue. Are we clear on this? This is extremely important. 5th, you are wanting to get into the civil services, which means start behaving like civil servants, not the ones that you see on social media, the ones that you don't see on social media, the ones who are quiet workers, the ones who are rational, the ones who keep their head down and work. Clear? Your conduct to the civil services exam is your conduct to becoming a civil servant. The analogy is fairly clear. Once you become a civil servant, and I'm assuming most of you want to get into the administrative services or the foreign services. If some of you want to get into the police services, don't. Your clear-cut ambition has to be, you want to get into the administrative services or you want to get into the foreign services. Nobody gets into this exam thinking, oh, I wish I could become an Indian Postal Services officer. I love writing letters, so I'll become a postal service officer. No. That's your aim. That's what you want to become. Your rank might make you a revenue services officer. Your rank might make you a corporate law services officer. But you're here either to become an administrative services officer or a foreign services officer. Clear on this? So keep that absolutely spot on. So as a foreign services officer or as an administrative officer or as any officer in any civil services, you would be managing at least 15 departments, sections, programs or things at a time. If your career expects you to manage 15 things at a time, then the preparation to your career should expect you to manage 15 subjects at a time. It's that simple. That is why you have a vast syllabus. And when you're managing those 15 departments, some departments may require a higher focus. Some departments may require a very limited attention. In the same way, some subjects would require you to spend more attention. Some subjects may require you to pay very limited attention. The exam is structured in a way that it will always filter out hardworking, consistent, and candidates who have a sense of priority. That's it. Now, these are your core academic rules. I'd also like to take this opportunity to speak to you about things beyond academics, right? The first part. Please do not ignore your mental health in any form or capacity. This exam is a fundamentally lonely process. People come to offline classes for the same reason why people come to a gym. And as you would know, I am the last person. The point being, why do people go to a gym? The key to living a healthy life is to eat right and exercise right. But when you go to a gym and you see 20 people doing the same thing, there is some amount of a peer collectiveness that comes in that makes you want to exercise more. We as human beings are fundamentally community-driven people, which is why offline coaching institutes exist, which is why you would want to take up an offline class. You'd want the touch and feel of it. You'd want to see the teacher in person. You would want to know 5-10 people who are like-minded as you, who are preparing for the same thing as you, so that you don't feel like you're the only one doing it. That is why dominantly we exist. Whether you do an online coaching or an offline coaching or you prepare on your own, there will come a point of time in your life for 6 to 8 months where you will have to be locked in a room for 6 to 8 hours every day and be alone with your books. You have to be comfortable with solitude. You have to be comfortable with your own self. And that in itself can be very overwhelming. Academic anxiety, depression, these are real problems. You will face them. You will often see a lot of students around you who will tend to flaunt how much they know. And that can have an impact on your confidence. You've been preparing for 6-8 months and you write a prelims test and you're not even crossing 70. It is going to have an incredible amount of an impact on you. It is going to shake you from the very within, right? Don't ignore this. And because most of you are in college, finishing college, apart from this exam, life would have thrown its fair share of problems at you. Some of you may have a turbulent home. Some of you may have had turbulent relationships. Some of you may have had a traumatic childhood. Sooner or later, this will catch up to you. Sooner or later, it will start having an impact on you. And you will start thinking about all of these things when you're preparing for this exam. Please do not ignore them. If you don't know someone professional to deal with this, please get in touch with me. I will arrange someone to professionally speak with you. Don't worry, I'll take care of all the costs involved. But be mentally healthy. This is very, very important. Clear? As a teacher, I do not believe in giving mental health guidance because I am not trained for it. I will acknowledge and I will understand that you have a problem. But if you come and tell me that you are depressed, I will never tell you, oh, koi baat nahi, life goes on. Or why don't you just distract yourself? I know that people in our industry have this habit of giving mental health advice when they're not trained for it. I am not trained for it, so I will not give you the advice, but I will make sure you get the right possible attention. That's number one. Number two, as much as your mental health is important, physical health is also incredibly important. Now, what does that mean? That means you have to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Please make sure that you have some sport, some exercise, even if you want to do a home workout of a certain kind, whatever it is, you have to keep yourself physically healthy. If you're undernourished or if you're overnourished, you will have a problem of concentration. You will have a problem of fatigue. You will have a problem of a shortened attention span. You will not feel energetic enough. Bad physical health will have an impact on your mental health. Please make sure. And there are enough and more opportunities. If you're a walking, running person, Delhi has enough parks. Take a stroll. You want to pick up a sport, you will have enough DDA centers in and around you. You can go play badminton or basketball or whatever it is. Go to a stadium and play, no problem at all. If you're a gymming person, I'm going to judge you if you're a gymming person, go to a gym. But do something, whatever it is. Now, all of you are at an age where you're going to be in an extremely vulnerable state because the exam is going to have its toll on you. Statistically, 10 lakh people register for this exam. 5 lakh people actually write this exam. And out of the 5 lakh people, about 1.5 lakh seriously write this exam. Your competition is with 1.5 lakh people. But those 1.5 lakh people are incredibly smart. They're incredibly hardworking. What makes this exam tough is the 1.5 lakh people, not the 10 lakh people. Clear? And from that 1.5 lakh people who write the prelims, about 12,000-13,000 people write the mains. Out of the 12,000-13,000 people who write the mains, about approximately 3,000-4,000 people come for the interview. And you require one seat out of the 1,000 odd seats that are available. Most of you would want to get into the administrative or the foreign services. So the seat that you're looking at is essentially 1 out of the 200. That makes the competition tough. Having said that, all of this will put you in a state of vulnerability. My sincere, honest advice to all of you is, if you have a sustainable, healthy relationship of sorts, good, stick to it. Otherwise, don't start something new. You will be very tempted to. You will meet somebody who will have the same, who's going to be in the same mind space as you. You will feel a sense of connect and you'll make promises to each other that we'll go to the academy together. That is not going to happen. Most likely none of you would. And if in the rare circumstances one of you does, the other is going to become Kabir Singh 2.0, irrespective of gender. And that's a horrible example to give. Clear? I know there are going to be points, you're going to be very tempted, you'll be at a phase in your life where you feel very low, and then suddenly you'll have that connect with somebody who'll be like, oh, this person understands who I am, feels what I'm going through. And it will be very natural for you to have that kind of an attachment. But don't. For a very simple reason, all of us think that we are special. And all of us think what all of us have is very special. If everybody has what is special, then who is that person who doesn't have what is special? There is a reason averages exist. 9 out of 10 of you will not be able to manage it well. right? You're going to spend some time or the other on that person. So unless it's a healthy relationship, don't get into it. Clear? Don't start a new one. It is going to have a very important role to play in your civil services prep. It's going to be difficult, but please make sure you are okay with this. Okay? Good. You're preparing for the civil services. There are only two fundamental truths in your life: the syllabus and previous year questions. Nothing else matters. What I say doesn't matter. What a textbook says doesn't matter. What a newspaper says doesn't matter. What matters is what is in the syllabus and how do you contextualize it with the PYQs. This is a golden line that you will not breach under any circumstances. So now the question is, what in the syllabus and what about the PYQs? There are two things that you must know about the syllabus. One, of course, what is in it, and two, what is not in it. Very important. And what is not in it, is it indirectly written somewhere else? Do I still have to prepare for it? I'll give you a simple example. Heard of somebody called a governor? The word governor has no mention in your main syllabus. Have you heard of something called fundamental rights? The main syllabus has no mention of fundamental rights. But there are questions on fundamental rights. Heard of something called citizenship? The main syllabus does not mention citizenship. So, fundamental rights is not in your main syllabus, yet there are questions on fundamental rights in the mains. Citizenship is not in your main syllabus, and therefore there are no questions on citizenship. Governor is not in your syllabus specifically, but is asked in the garb of center-state relations. This is knowing your syllabus. What is in it, what is not. If it is not, is it indirectly to be studied in another context? For instance, history has ancient history, medieval history, art and culture, modern, world, contemporary. I think that's pretty much it. The main syllabus does not cover medieval history. There's nothing called medieval history in your main syllabus. There has never been a question on it. Except 2023, this year, where there's a question that says, examine the technological developments that happened in the Delhi Sultanate period. Now what do? Art and culture is. Socio-economic developments are. Medieval history is not. So you'll have to prepare evolution of technological developments anyway. But do I need to prepare Delhi Sultanate specifically for the mains? No. The purpose of the syllabus is to draw a circumference around you. Otherwise, the world is your oyster. Everything is in your syllabus. Everything has to be studied. And what makes it incredibly easy is your PYQs. The pattern of this exam changed in the year 2013. This is when we now have GS paper 1, 2, 3, 4, an essay and 2 optional papers in one head. This is the pattern that you have to prepare on. It has been 10 years to this pattern in 2023. there are certain things that are a very clear indication. So when you're looking at PYQs, both for the pre and the mains, there are two things that you have to know. What was asked and why was it asked? Because if you know this, you'll be able to predict what to prepare for the next time. The mains exam is an easier exam than the prelims exam. It is very easy to take an educated guess and say that I'm going to prepare about 100 topics for paper 2 entirely, and out of these 100 topics, at least 15 to 20 questions in the mains exam, I will know for sure. Let me give you 2-3 very interesting examples that I would want you to go home, cross-check and confirm for me. Example number 1. International relations. The mains exam happens in the month of September. Yeah? In the last 10 years, ever since the pattern has changed, only if it has been in the news in the last 6 to 8 months is when it becomes important for the mains. Not a single question in IR has been asked in the mains exam which is older in terms of current than 8 months, which effectively means January. This 6 to 8 months becomes 10 to 11 months for a major subject like polity. So this entire drama of doing 2 years of current and 1.5 years of the paper is nonsensical. Every question has a context, and therefore you know how to simplify and prepare your exam. The general understanding is this exam has 5 core subjects: geography, history, polity, eco and science and tech. Do these first. Once you know these, you would be able to branch out to applied subjects. It's only when you know a little bit of polity, a little bit of governance would make sense. It's only when you know a little bit of polity and history and economics would social issues and social justice make sense. These are your primary subjects. Once you're done with this, it makes sense for you to do ethics because your examples in ethics are taken from these GS subjects. You don't have to look elsewhere. Your layer 1 are your 5 fundamental subjects. I'll only take 2 minutes and mathematically show this to you. You will do this scientifically. Let us say you're preparing for 2024. Let's assume you're preparing for 2024. Let us say you have 12 months. These 12 months translate into about 48 weeks. You have to divide these 48 weeks into 4 or 5 phases. Let us say you divide it into 4 phases, right? That means each phase is how long? 12 weeks. So you have each phase of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 and phase 4 of 12 weeks. These phases should have ultimate goals. Suppose phase 1 in 12 weeks, you should have done say paper 1 of your optional and let us say completed history as a whole, or let's say half of history. This is your goal. Then you break this goal into weekly targets. That in week 1, what is your optional subject? PSI. So let's say week 1, you've got to study Aristotle. I don't think it's in your syllabus, is it? It is. Week 1, You'll finish Aristotle, you'll finish the revolt of 1857, and you'll finish the paper. That's it. Clear? And you will plot this for the entire 12 months. Don't do daily targets because it's very difficult to catch up. Are we clear? Simple and effective way to prepare. You've got two newspaper choices, either the Indian Express or the Hindu. Whichever you find easier to read is the right paper for you. Sometimes people find the Indian Express language a little more simple. Sometimes people find the Hindu to be a little more direct. Whatever suits you, you'll pick one. There will be one newspaper that you will read. Now, whether you read the newspaper daily or every Sunday, sit with the week's newspaper for 4 hours, that's entirely up to you. You are not in a hurry. You don't need to do the paper on a daily basis. Clear? But you have to do the paper. You'll start with daily. In a few months, you'll realize what I was saying was right. And then you'll move to a weekly basis, because if something happens on a Tuesday, the article that you should actually be reading about it will come on a Friday. Why do you read two articles for the same thing? Read one which is actually the most relevant. Keep one newspaper as the base. Suppose, let us say, you've taken the Indian Express as a base. So on a Sunday at 9 o'clock in the morning, you sat down. From 9 till about lunch, you're going to finish the entire week's newspaper. And you will do this reverse chronologically, so that you will know this has been building up. Let me see if there's something that I have missed. That's one. Two, in the same week itself, look at only the editorials, and Hindu has a section called text and context. Just that. And see if there's something good that they've covered there that you have not covered here. That's it. If the Hindu is your base, then on a weekly basis, when you're finishing up Hindu, go through the editorials and the explained column together. Simplify your prep. Clear? Understood? Follow one monthly magazine, whichever it is. Vision, Insights, ours is Articulate, whatever. Whichever you find the easiest to read, stick to it. That's it. That is all that you're going to be doing for current affairs. Clear? Understood? That's it. It's that simple. The purpose of your preparation has to be very clear. You're studying a book, or you're going through a lecture to finish a topic relevant both for the prelims and the mains in a manner that the entire topic in one space, in 2 to 3 to 4 pages is for you here. For instance, the one thing everybody knows is G20. Yeah? So let's say it's G20. What is the G20? Who are the members? How does it function? Why is it important? Has it been successful? 6. What happened at the G20 India Summit? What does it lead to? And how does it help India? If you know the answers to these 8 questions, you would know the answers to any question the UPSC can ever ask you as far as the pre and the mains is concerned. These 8 questions should be together in one place in 4 pages. This is UPSC prep. You want to make a diagram out of it, make a diagram out of it. You want to make a table out of it, you make a table out of it. You want to make flashcards out of it, you make flashcards out of it. But this is what your prep is all about. Keep a margin or keep sticky notes handy. If there's something in the paper that has been important, add it right there. And whichever has the most number of additional markings automatically becomes important for the exam. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. You're preparing for a Sarkari exam, it has to be prepared in a Sarkari manner. Simple. No jing bang. Oh my God, so using some correlation. Okay? Want to make notes on an iPad? Make notes on an iPad. Want to make notes on loose sheets of paper? Make notes on loose sheets of paper. Want to make it at a register? Whatever is comfortable for you. But this is it. Okay? Understood? This is your preparation. Ground rule for every subject. 1 standard source and only if needed 1 additional source. If needed, very selectively. Okay? Alright. Now, let's start with my explanation to you with respect to why PYQs are important. I asked you to go through the main syllabus for paper 2. Did you see a topic that said comparison of the Indian constitutional scheme with that of other countries written somewhere in the main syllabus in GS paper 2? Did you see something like this written?
Yes, sir.
If I only read this, what would I understand? I would understand that I have to know about the constitution of every damn country in the world. I would have to know the technical details of every constitutional development that has happened everywhere in the world. Yes? No? The pattern changed in 2013. They've only asked questions every year since 2018, which is midway. Look at the questions that have been asked. Can you all see this? People at the back? Yeah. 2017. India and the United States are 2 large democracies. Examine the basic tenets on which the 2 political systems are based. They've asked you a simple question on presidential versus parliamentary system of government. And why did they ask you this in 2018? Because in 2017, we had a new president and the US also counterpart had a new election. That is why they asked you this. 2018. What can France learn from Indian constitution's approach to secularism? Why the hell would they ask you France? Because 2019 was a terrible year for France. It was all over the news. One of their famous cathedrals called Notre Dame was attacked. France has been infamous for a hijab law, and they made an amendment to the hijab law in 2019, where if mothers are even going out with their children on school trips, they had to compulsorily wear a hijab. It's a fundamental question of secularism. And they asked you about France. Also because France on one side, US, UK and India on one side are 2 different legal systems. We're a common law system. France is a continental law system. Here, our judge can question a law. In France, no judge can question a law. It's a fundamental difference. And they've picked the most important continental country, which is France. That's it. That's why they asked you this. 2020. The judicial systems in India and UK seem to be converging as well as diverging in recent times. Highlight the key points of convergence and divergence between the two nations in terms of their judicial practices. Yeah? Why the hell would they ask you to compare Indian and English judicial systems? Because in 2020, the UK Supreme Court, which is by the way one of the world's youngest Supreme Courts, they only came into existence in 2010. The UK Supreme Court overturned an order of the Queen to shut the Parliament down. Because on the advice of the UK Prime Minister, they wanted to shut the Parliament because they were facing a lot of heat on Brexit. That's when they asked you a counter question. It was all over the news again. 6 months before the mains exam. 2021. Analyze the distinguishing features of the right to equality in the constitutions of the US and India. The Black Lives Matter movement. Civil rights. They also have affirmative action. We also have affirmative action. Our affirmative action is reservation in employment, education and representation. Their affirmative action is mostly in education. And very recently, the US Supreme Court has shut a reservation for African Americans for universities. They still have reservation in schools, but not for universities. And the Black Rights Movement was huge. When you're doing special for the African Americans, you're doing something special so that you could bring the African Americans on the same platform as every other American. Isn't that what we do for people from lower castes in India? The principle is affirmative action. It's never just about treating people equally. It is about treating similar people similarly. In the Constitution under Article 14, we use something called equal protection of law. Correct? This is it. The context is very, very clear. Then in 2022, they ask you, critically examine the procedures through which the presidents of India, and again they've asked France, because French and Indians both got a new president in 2022. Yes. And this year, they asked you, compare and contrast the British and Indian approaches to parliamentary sovereignty. Because A, the British Prime Minister is a person of Indian origin, and 2, they have been making several sort of policy decisions which are not being able to be questioned in a court because the parliament there is supreme. There you go. So what is your analysis? I only need to know 4 countries: US, India, France, UK. And I only need to know that country for that year where there is a major development. So for 2024, the biggest development that is going to happen is that US is going to get a new president.
Yes.
I'm going to wait for that. Do I sit with the constitutions of the world? No, I don't. I don't. When we do polity, we do comparisons. But 2 months before the mains exam, I will only do US, India and go. This is the power of the syllabus and PYQs.
I think there's that UK also has their general elections.
Yes, UK also has the general elections next year. Because the current Prime Minister has not been directly elected. There was a vacancy and the party internally elected them. Yes. But a question on UK elections will not be the case because we have the same format. And they've just asked UK in 23. So the likelihood of them repeating in the same country next year is next to zero. It is like an unwritten code that we have with UPSC. They're a mafia, we're a mafia. We have an unwritten code. We not repeat the same question the very next year. If they break it, then we are doomed, boss. then there's nothing that I can do. It's an unwritten code. उनको भी पता है, मेरे को भी पता है कि इसमें पंगा नहीं लेंगे. In your prelims, there has never been a question asking you any article number in the Constitution. In the mains, the only fundamental rights they've ever asked you in the mains exam are 14, 19 and 21. Equality, expression and life and liberty. That's it. So do I need to prepare anything else? Nope. Do this for all subjects. You will save a truckload of your time. Clear?
Yes.
The two most powerful things in your hand are your syllabus and previous year questions. And it is my humble request to all of you, please keep a copy of the syllabus in front of your study table, which also is very important. I know everybody has their own way to study, their own means to study. And some people like to sit on the bed and study, some people like to sit on the table and study. But if you're okay, if it is fine with you, sit on a designated table and sit. Keep the newspaper, keep the syllabus in front of you, paste it in front of you at all times. Also, how many of you are living in Rajendra Nagar? Good. For those of you who are deciding, and it's costly for you, don't. Save those few extra 1,000 rupees, go a few metro stations away, live more comfortably, get yourself a very good mattress, get yourself a very good study chair, a good table, good lighting, good ventilation. You're in Rajendra Nagar, it is the most expensive slum in the country. It's true. Why would you pay a bum to live in a room where you won't even get light? It is inhumane. But I want to live near the mahol. People who live in the mahol end up becoming teachers. आया समझ में?
Yes, sir.
तो अगर मेरी नौकरी नहीं करनी है तो दूर रहना है. ठीक है? ऑल राइट, गुड. अब ये आपका पॉलिटी और गवर्नेंस का सिलेबस है प्रीलिम्स का. For the preliminary exam, this is your syllabus. Remember, it says polity and governance. Polity is a larger term than the constitution. Polity is understanding the legal framework of a country. One of the legal frameworks is the constitution. It is the most important law, I agree, but it is one of the laws. Understood? That is why your entire UPSC syllabus will always say polity and constitution. It will never just say constitution. And within this Indian polity and governance, there are 5 very specific things that are written. 1, the constitution. 2, the political system. 3, Panchayati Raj. 4th, which means nothing and everything, public policy. And 5th, rights issues. So your governance, your schemes, everything comes here. And then they have a random thing that says current events of national and international importance. So if I ask you a simple question, Can I organize my preparation on the basis of the prelims exam itself? Is that a correct thing to do? No, because there is no head or tail to it. Where does it start? Where does it end? We don't know. The problem with the prelims syllabus is that it's too open, it's too vague. We have to severely rely on previous year questions. But I cannot prepare in the order that they've given us. That is very clear. Because Panchayati Raj is technically in the constitution. It's supported by another law called the Panchayati Extension Scheduled Act, which is another law. Rights issues also intersect with fundamental rights. I cannot base my prelims preparation on the basis of the prelims syllabus. Are we clear on this? Let's try the means. Okay. All of you can see this? Everybody can see this? I'll move out of the way. Everybody can see this? Yes? This is your mains syllabus in this order. The title of your mains syllabus is Governance, Constitution, Polity, Social Justice and IR. It has a total of 20 points and these 20 points are written in the most random manner. Everybody can see this, right? Anybody who can't? Okay. The first point, Indian Constitution, historical underpinnings, evolution, features, amendments, significant provisions and basic structure. तो बचा क्या? Look at these idiots. They can't write 2 lines of a syllabus properly. Why have they written everything else if the first part of the syllabus is everything? So I have to study the evolution of the constitution, the features and the characteristics of the constitution without studying the constitution. One of the features, let's say, of the constitution is that it is both rigid and flexible, which means it is difficult to be changed in some ways and it can be changed at the snap of a finger in some ways. Unless I don't know what those ways are, I have to first learn it is rigid and flexible. मेरे माथे पे लिखा है क्या? पागल हूं क्या मैं? आ रहा समझ में? Let us study the constitution. Then we'll understand the features. Make sense? Good. Now see the second point. Makes no sense whatsoever. The second point of the syllabus is functions and responsibilities of the union and states, comma, issues and challenges pertaining to the federal structure, comma, devolution of powers and finances up to the local levels and challenges therein. There is no need to study central government, state government, prime minister, chief minister, president, governor. You first directly study center-state relations. बुरा लगेगा? लगेगा ना? कि बिना प्रेसिडेंट गवर्नर पढ़ाए, बिना ये बताए कि पार्लियामेंट क्या है, without telling you what the parliament is, how the parliament functions, how the state legislatures function, I have to teach you the relationship between the two. Yes? So I have to know the functions, then I have to know the issues. प्रधानमंत्री नहीं पढ़ा अभी तक. You have to study local self government इधर ही. पहले सरपंच पढ़ के दिखाओ. अरे? Point number 3, separation of powers between various organs, number 1, and dispute redressal mechanisms and institutions. These are 2 very unrelated topics. For those of you who are believers in Hindu mythology, we've got 3 gods, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, creator, executor, destroyer. Legislature, executive, judiciary. The legislature makes the law, the executive implements it, the judiciary questions it or quashes it if it's objectionable. You don't know what the legislature, executive, judiciary is, but you're supposed to know how they're separated. And then you're supposed to know dispute redressal issues. I have not taught you the Supreme Court, but I need to teach you the tribunals by this order. लोक अदालत पहले पढ़ लो, CGI का बाद में देख लेंगे. You don't need to know who the Chief Justice of India is. I need to know who the लोक अदालत is. अरे भाई, उसके बाद पता नहीं उनको क्या काटा. Fourth syllabus. Comparison of the Indian constitutional scheme with that of other countries. आधा अधूरा. अब चलो यूके चलते हैं. अब यूएस पढ़ के आएंगे, अच्छा लगेगा. फ्रांस में बोझुआ करेंगे. अरे भाई, क्या चल रहा है? Yes? Objections. Then they get back to life. Point number 5. Comparison in Parliament and state legislatures. ढंग से लिखा है. Structure, function, conduct of business, powers and privileges, and issues arising out of these. उसके बाद then बह गए. Point number 6. Structure, organization and functioning of the executive and the judiciary. Dash. Ministries and departments of the government, comma, pressure groups and formal and informal associations and their role in polity. मतलब minister, judge and all India Kisan Samiti have to study together. It's a pressure group. Why? From here, then they go back to salient features of the Representation of Peoples Act, which is basically your India's election law. Shouldn't I be studying the election law when I'm studying legislatures? Why am I doing it 3 steps below? Then they've got constitutional bodies, then they've got quasi-judicial bodies. So point number 1 to point number 8, 9 is sort of polity. Then 10, 11, 12 is another mix match. See, syllabus point number 10. Government policies and interventions for development in various sectors and issues arising out of the design and implementation. This is like point number 1 of polity. ये लिख दिया तो बाकी क्या बचा? What are the issues that you have with everything in the country and how do you solve them? That is what the syllabus means. So this is development policy. This is governance. And then after this, they immediately jump to development industries. Development processes and the development industry, point number 11, the role of NGOs, SHGs, various groups and associations, donors, charities, institutions and stakeholders. Isn't this to be studied with formal and informal associations together? They're effectively non-state actors. Why do I study them separately? Yes? Then, what are you doing for the vulnerable sections? Then, issues relating to the management of social sectors such as education, health and human resources. Then, poverty and hunger, which is also in paper 1, is also in paper 3. 15. Now governance begins. Again, you had a little bit of social issues. Now you have a little bit of governance. This is social justice. So, point number 10 and 11 was governance. 12, 13 and 14 were social justice. 15 is back to governance. अरे एक लाइन से तो लिख देते. Correct? Important aspects of governance, transparency and accountability, e-governance, its applications, models, successes, limitations and potential, citizens charter और दोबारा लिखा है same चीज. Transparency and accountability in institutional and other measures. They've written the same damn thing twice. That is how careless they are. देन सब कहानी खत्म होने के बाद रोल ऑफ सिविल सर्विसेज. 17, 18, 19 and 20s IR, India's neighborhood, bilateral, regional and global groupings affecting India, involving India or affecting India. 19, effect of policies and politics of developed nations, और क्योंकि जबरदस्ती घुसाड़ना था इंडियन डायस्पोरा साइड में. And then finally, important international institutional agencies and their structure and mandate. This is your paper 2 syllabus. Now, this is also not properly arranged. Can I study in this order? No. So I have to do the following things. I have to look at 4 steps, 4 very, very basic steps. 1, I have to segregate and compartmentalize the syllabus. 2, I have to see other parts of the syllabus which are similar to this, or I can study them together. 3, I have to organize them in a certain manner. And 4th, after organizing them, I will restructure them from a basic to an advanced level. Yes, this is how you should study. This is what you need to do. So step number 1. This is polity, point 1 to 9. 1, 2, 3, 4 is governance. This is social justice, and this is IR. And when we were looking at governance, remember very categorically this part and pressure groups gets merged here. Polity sort of ends here and begins here, and governance begins here. Step number 1 is clear. Segregate तो करो पहले. ये polity, ये governance, ये social justice और ये IR. Once step number 1 is done, look at step number 2. If there's something similar which is happening anywhere else, why do I study it separately? See, very clearly, role of civil services in a democracy. Can you see this? In your paper 4 ethics, do you see foundational values for civil services? Yes? अलग क्यों पढ़ो? Can I not take one major topic as civil services, cover it enough for paper 2 and paper 4 together? Why duplicate the effort? Yes? Civil service values, concept of public service, they're essentially the same thing. So I will take civil services as one major heading. I will do the structure of civil services, the evolution of civil services, the administrative reforms to civil services, the nature of civil services, the values of civil services, the conflicts in civil services, and the ethical basis of civil service. एक बार में पूरा खत्म. अलग अलग भागने की क्या जरूरत है? Correlate. You will keep governance as the base, but you will add paper 4 here. ठीक है? Similarly, do you see transparency and accountability here? Yes? Do you see transparency here? Do you see accountability and ethical guidance here? It's the same damn thing. You will see, for example, they've repeated the damn syllabus. इतने काम चोर हैं. Citizen charter exactly इधर भी है और इधर भी. So a smart thing to do would be take good governance as a major head and do your entire, say, transparency is one, accountability is one, civil services is one, and finish it in that order. Concepts, policies, laws, institutions, issues, reforms, and you're done. Make sense? Yes? The most important part. Spend a month figuring out how you're going to prepare. Then start preparing. Life will be far smoother. So you'll always otherwise be in a tussle. Similarly, although I've not mentioned this here, but this essentially becomes a larger governance issue. Similarly, this is social justice in paper 2. This is social issues in paper 1. Here we are referring to vulnerable sections, which means women, children, elderly, disabled, trans, caste and tribal. यही है ना? Wouldn't role of women in women organization come here? अलग से क्यों पढ़े? We'll prepare women as a consolidated topic. Issues relating to the development and the management of health, education, human resources. Human resources is associated with population management. अलग से क्यों करें? Poverty and hunger इधर है, poverty and developmental issues इधर है. And once you are done, social empowerment is effectively cast. Yes or no? And once you are done with your fundamental principles of communalism, regionalism and secularism, yes, you have your gateway ready for what is called internal security. Because Naxalism is a regionalism problem. Insurgency is a communalism problem. Now, are you able to see a method to the madness? Yes. And then you understand, once I know the broad contours of IR, internal security becomes easy. Once I understand Indo-Pak, Indo-China, Indo-Bangladesh, Indo-Pakistan, Indo-Afghanistan, Indo-Sri Lanka, I will understand Naxalism in Central India, Northeast law and order issues, J&K insurgency problem, drug trafficking, Golden Crescent, Death Triangle. Once you understand Indo-Myanmar, you will understand cross-border migration problems. So IR will make internal security a piece of cake. And you should only do IR once you have a functional knowledge of world history. This is the cycle. So there's nothing common. But this sets up a fantastic base for this. Because the internal security problems will have a large role played by people outside the country, and they're largely in our neighborhood. Yes? Either study them simultaneously or study internal security after IR. Both are equally good ways to go about it. Clear? This is your step number 1. Segregate your syllabus. Once you've done, step number 2, cross-reference your syllabus. Then organize it. Paper 2 becomes the backbone. Polity becomes the starting point. When you do governance, you do ethics and governance simultaneously. When you do social justice, you do social issues simultaneously. When you do IR, you follow it up with internal security. The most effective way to prepare. Now comes the fourth step. What is the order in each of these? Simple. Polity, governance, ethics. This becomes one module. Start with polity, move to governance and ethics and governance together. Why? Because when you're doing anti-corruption laws here, it's effectively legal issues. You will be in the same frame of mind. You're essentially looking at making the government better. And the study of the government that is why it's called Polity and Governance. That's why your prelim syllabus title is Indian Polity and Governance. So your first module becomes Polity and Governance. Your second module, clear? So in your first module, this is the simplest way to go about this. Simplest, most effective way. Start by an introduction. Understand what is meant by law. What is meant by rule of law. What are the basic systems of government in the world? Basic. And then, simple. Territory and citizenship. Preamble, rights, duties, directive principles. The president and the governor. President, governor, PM, CM together. Because comparisons are very easy. Then, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, state assemblies and electoral laws together. Judiciary and the judicial system together. Once you've done your L, E and J, now you can do separation of powers and how they keep a check on each other. Once you're done with this, now understand the relationship between the center and the states, which is federalism. Then take it a level below. Local self-government, rural and urban, your panchayats and municipalities. Clear? From here, you do civil services as a block theme. Then in governance, then you finish bodies, then you start with development policy. India's story of development, key features of development, how are we executing it yesterday, how are we doing it today, what are our major challenges for tomorrow. Simple. And developmental non-state actors. Once you know what the government's development policy is, now you'd understand governance is too serious a business to be left to the government. So let's see what NGOs do, what SHGs do, what formal and informal associations do. And then you close it with good governance. How do I make everything here better? That's what good governance is. Theme number 13 is to make theme number 1 to 12 better. Now it makes academic sense that you're starting from point A, moving to point B. Right? You'll do the exact same thing for everything else. Social justice and social issues, merge it into one. Start with social sectors. Health, education, skill, human resources. Then remove the magnifying glass away. Look at it from sections. Women, children, elderly, disabled. Then look at cross-sectional problems. Poverty, hunger, food security. And now that you have enough variables of the Indian society, then look at the larger features of the Indian society. And once you're done with that, you look at the major challenges, which is communalism, regionalism and secularism, which is your gateway into internal security. Clear? You do the same thing with IR and internal security. declutter it. First, understand the principles of IR. How is IR made? How is foreign policy made? Who makes it? What are the key determinants? What is the evolution? Then do countries in multiple layers. First, neighborhood. Then extended neighborhood. Then major powers. And then some special powers. So Pakistan is neighborhood. Japan is extended neighborhood. Israel is a special place. And US is a major power. This will set the base for institutions. Because institutions are a collective of countries. Regional, multilateral, global. Start from a SAARC, go all the way up to a UN. Start from a UN, go all the way back to a SAARC. Whatever you're comfortable with. And then your themes in IR. Disarmament, terrorism, human rights, environment, maritime security. 2 to 2 pages on each global thematic issue. This, by the way, will also cover a topic in your ethics called Ethics of International Relations or Ethics in IR Funding. You finish it up here. Clear? Understood this? Yes? Internal security. Your syllabus says random linkages between development and spread of extremism. Ari, first talk to me. Tell me how I am. If I meet you for the first time, Baba, and I say, 100 rupees de. You would feel offended, no? I'll be like, hello, how are you? Long time, you look lovely. Give me 500 rupees. You give me, no? Bas. अरे पूछ तो लो नाजुक नाजुक बच्चों को बोला ये बताओ So what is national and internal security? What constitutes it? What are the challenges? Who makes internal security policy? Then pick up your major policy challenges, your non-state actors in a bad way. Start with the most immediate ones, Naxalism, Northeast and JNK. Then go to issue-based problems, drugs, cross-border, piracy, UAVs, etc., etc., etc. Are we clear? And from here, you move to cyber security and close it with an overall policy structure. What are your laws on security? What are your agencies? What are your forces? What do they do? Reasonable? Make sense? Do this for the entire syllabus. This 1 month of mind-numbing work will save 6 to 8 months of your time. Don't jump into preparation. When you're running, when you're going to be running a marathon, you prepare for a marathon, right? It's a long journey. Rage, rage, rage until you go into the dying light. Na Baba? Interstellar. You guys are nothing but astronauts. Here. And that is how you prepare your entire course. यहाँ से पढ़ो कहीं से पढ़ो मेरे लेक्चर टेलीग्राम पे वैसे ही 100 रुपए देके मिल जाते हैं जो ठीक लगे बट अच्छे से पढ़ो. That is not my concern. My concern is अच्छे से पढ़ो. ठीक है? Clear? Good. Now, this is the part of the foundation course. So those of you who would have known me before, every year before the pre, for free I do a Magna Carta pre. For the mains I do a Magna Carta mains. It's about 20 lectures for pre and mains both. Generally have a hit rate of 80% accuracy. Clear? तो ये करो ना ये करो, प्री और मेंस के पहले ये फ्री में मिल जाता है, देख लेना, ये इंपॉर्टेंट है. ठीक है? Now, sources, very important. इसमें कुछ चीजें म्यूट करनी पड़ेंगी, तो मैं माइक ऑफ करूंगा। सबसे पहले 2 NCRTs, Indian Constitution at Work and Political Theory. Do them as and when you are doing the parts in the syllabus. Don't do them कि अभी मैं NCRT पढ़ेगा 6 महीने, उसमें मेडिटेशन करेगा। लक्ष्मीकांत अच्छी लगती है, पढ़। नहीं अच्छी लगती है, कुछ और पढ़। But only one. This will help you for the pre, but is not good enough for the mains. ठीक है? क्लियर? पक्का? इधर आओगे तो ये यूए अनअकैडमी वाले नोट्स देंगे, वो भी बढ़िया है ऑनेस्टली। बट आइदर ऑफ द टू, कुछ भी कहीं पे भी जो ठीक लगे। सब लोगों का पॉलिटी मटीरियल मोरलेस अच्छा होता है क्योंकि सब एक दूसरे का ही छाप के बनाते हैं। ठीक है? हाँ, इट्स अ फैक्ट। ठीक है? थर्ड, मेन मार्केट में जाना, स्टेशनरी की दुकान में जाना। There's something called शून्य IAS. It is this industry's most well hidden secret. इनकी GS की 4 किताबें आती हैं, GS 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 books, 700-800 रुपए की आती है। So Unacademy is the best place to study. Clear? Try to get that officially so that they can send you PDF notes also in case they want to update. Otherwise, whatever suits you, it's a good recommendation. Bas. These are your only sources. Nothing else. Bas. कम चीज 10 बार पढ़ो, ऑलवेज बेटर देन ज्यादा चीज कम बार पढ़ो। क्या नहीं करना, ये मेरे लिए इंपॉर्टेंट है। दिस इज दिस न्यू फियर साइकोसिस दैट वी जनरली हैव। ठीक है? Heard of a book called D.D. Basu? वो नोट्स में हो जाएगा, क्लासेस में मिल जाएगा। ठीक है? 2, ये IR इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी का किताब नहीं खरीदना है कोई भी। You know what I mean? टाटा मैग्रो हिल का ये सब ड्रामा नहीं करना है। 2 सवाल आते हैं, चुपचाप अखबार से निकल जाते हैं। You don't need Pavneet Singh's or Rajiv Gupta's or whatever book, not needed. तीसरा, रोज ऐसे माता चढ़ती है ना, जैसे PI भी बैठ के देख रहे हैं, वो कंपाइलेशन में हो जाएगा। अलग से बैठ के डोंट सिट एंड सर्च PIB। फोर्थ, there's some government magazines, योजना, कुरुक्षेत्र, पानीपत, पाटलिपुत्रा। ठीक है? Keep it simple, keep it clean. That's how you prepare. ठीक है? Have a good, healthy circle of friends. Before you start preparing, if you need any help on figuring out how you need to prepare, you want me to help you set up a 1-year, 2-year plan, put things into perspective, drop me an email. I'll set up an appointment with you. If you're not coming here, then we could do a Google Meet kind of a thing. It's equally comfortable for me. I usually come here once or twice a week, but if not, you can always do this electronically. ठीक है? This is my public number. Please keep a note of this. Not my private, but it is a number that most people have. any issue, any emergency, anything of any kind, please let me know. Okay? लैंडलॉर्ड का प्रॉब्लम है, खाना नहीं दे रहे ठीक से, तबीयत खराब हो गई, लड़ाई हो गई, खून आ रहा है, any crisis, this is your SOS crisis number. It is always with me. I will always pick it up even if it is at 3 o'clock in the morning. ठीक है? I have a very different set of an attachment for the kids. I don't care what institutions are. I am responsible for your career. I've known people for 3-4 years who are here today in this class. So yes, they really come to say hi. But anyway, the point is, this is a direct number. Please keep in touch. Only in crisis. If you send me a message that says, "Dear sir, good morning. Life is flower, enjoy it." I am a very dark person. I do not like mornings. I do not like quotation marks. I do not like motivational talks. For that, Oja sir, Dishti IAS. एक क्लियर है बाबा? डियर सर, मुकम्मल चाहे तो क्या होता? आई डोंट केयर, आई डोंट नो, मेरे को क्या पता? सर गुड मॉर्निंग, सीज द डे. आई डोंट वांट टू सीज द डे. मैं ऐसे छाती पर लैपटॉप रख के सोता हूं. आई हैव नो इंटेंशन ऑफ सीजिंग द डे. समझ में आया? And if you call me at 1 o'clock and say, "Sir, मन नहीं लग रहा है," that's not a crisis, boss. उसका अलग से पैसा लगता है. And there are other services that you can use. I'm not. Can't afford me. आज समझ में? अपना ध्यान रखेंगे, एक दूसरे का ध्यान रखेंगे. कोई इशू होगा बताएंगे. Doesn't matter पैसा दिया नहीं दिया. Always. पक्का? Please take care of yourselves. Enjoy the preparation. It is going to change the way you look at world. दुनिया अलग अलग सी लगेगी. आपको देख के लोग बोलेंगे बहती हवा सा था वो. ठीक है? You look at life differently. It will change the way you are. आंखों में सपने लिए, हाथ में हिंदू अखबार लिए, पाँव में गंदी चप्पल. UPSC aspirant. ठीक है? और कहीं बाहर घूमते टहलते मैं दिख जाऊं तो घबराना नहीं, मिल लेना आके, मैं हेलो बोल दूंगा. ऐसे कोने से फोटो मत खींचना कि सर वी सॉ यू. अगर मेरे हाथ में कुछ होगा तो लेट मी स्टब इट. ठीक है? ध्यान रखेंगे अपना. ऑल ऑफ यू विल. Is anything else? Please let me know. It was a pleasure talking to all of you. It's been an honor. Good evening. Good night. Take care. Bye bye. नहीं पूछ सकता. पूछना भाई. हाँ? ऑप्शनल अगर आप इसलिए चूज कर रहे हो क्योंकि आपको जीएस में मार्क्स मिल सकते हैं, वो फंडामेंटल रॉन्ग एनालॉजी है. देखो ऑप्शनल का क्या सीन है, 1 मिनट लेता हूं. अच्छा क्वेश्चन है. इफ दिस इज अ स्ट्रेट लाइन, दो तरह के बच्चे होते हैं. एक, यू आर मैडली इन लव विद द सब्जेक्ट. 2, यू हैव अ वेरी प्रैक्टिकल एसोसिएशन विद द सब्जेक्ट. या तो आप जन जन्मांतर के प्यार वाले हो या आप टिंडर बम्बल जनता हो. दो छोड़ है. ठीक है? If you are madly in love with the subject, no questions asked, take it. If you are taking a subject only to derive the most amount of marks with it, great. The problem is most of us are somewhere here. In life and in optionals. है ना? प्यार भी चाहिए लेकिन हो नहीं पाएगा. ऑप्शनल भी चाहिए जिसमें इंटरेस्ट भी हो और मार्क्स भी आए. तो जब वो मार्क्स और इंटरेस्ट का कॉन्फ्लिक्ट होगा ना, इंटरेस्ट ओवर मार्क्स, क्योंकि बिना इंटरेस्ट के मार्क्स नहीं आते. ठीक है? मोस्ट ऑफ यू आर गोइंग टू बी इन द मिडल ऑफ द स्पेक्ट्रम. तो अगर लॉ में पागलपन वाला इंटरेस्ट नहीं है तो मत लो. ठीक है? ये मेरे फाइनेंशियल इंटरेस्ट के खिलाफ है. बट डोंट टेक लॉ अनलेस यू आर एब्सोल्युटली इन लव विद द सब्जेक्ट. इट्स नॉट अ वेरी रिवॉर्डिंग सब्जेक्ट. एनीथिंग एल्स? सॉरी आई फॉरगॉट टू टेक डाउट्स. और किसी को कुछ पूछना है? पक्का? श्योर? ध्यान रखेंगे? बाय.
Unacademy. Let's crack it.